Welcome back. We're out in the water again today. Trisha's going to be behind the cameras a little bit today. We decided what we would do today is make a bottom bouncing video. Now I know bottom bouncing is not the most exciting way to catch walleyes, but it's extremely effective, and I think that's why it's so popular among fishermen. But what we thought we would do is kind of show you some tips, techniques that we've found effective over the year, and even some non-traditional ways, I guess, to use a bottom bouncer that we've found sometimes weeds out some of the smaller fish, helps you catch some bigger fish, which is always fun. But if you want to catch, a lot of fish, then probably bottom bouncing is the way to do it. I think one of the reasons why bottom bouncing is so effective is because, for one thing, you're covering ground, you're kind of finding active fish, but you're also, it's very effective at keeping it in the strike zone. So, you're trolling along and you're going through fish, and some are active and some are not. And then you just, you pick off the ones that are wanting to feed, and you're right in that strike zone. So that's kind of where I played with the technique a little bit over the years and tried different things. And I'll show you that today, even trolling plastics and cranks with a bottom bouncer. And I'll try and show you that today, and that can be extremely effective. We're in the middle of August, towards the end of August now. So sometimes you have to hunt a little bit more for the walleye, but they're still around. And that's kind of where bottom bouncing can be effective, is when you're a little bit hunting, going from spot to spot. Doesn't hurt to have the line in the water while you're, covering some ground and looking for some active fish. So probably I'll start with kind of a traditional bottom bouncing rig, but I thought I would do, there's all kinds of different bottom bouncers. You can get this kind that just kind of clips onto your line. Not a big fan of that, but it's got its place. And then there's this I bought, and it's a lighter one. It's a little bit different style of a bottom bouncer rig. There's all kinds that you can buy. I just basically use the most basic, probably the most common that everyone uses for bottom bouncers, and it's just like this. And there's there's no right or wrong weight. The weight is really dependent on the depth of water you're fishing. And I don't very often go much past 2 ounce. 2 ounces for, you're in 20 feet of water or plus, which I don't usually target too often. Sometimes you have to, but more often than not, I find, 1 ounce to 1.5 is a good weight. And, like I said, this is pretty common, pretty basic bottom bouncing spinner rig. I prefer the single hooks. You can get the worm harness, which has got two hooks, two smaller hooks, but I find sometimes you hook them a little bit deeper, and I prefer not to do that because we let the majority of our fish go. And so that's why the one single hook I find works the best. And you just experiment what works. Some days it's leeches, some days it's worms and minnows. You just play around and you fish with the different baits until you find out what the fish want. And more often than not, you don't need a full worm on there. I just usually pinch or cut the worm in half, and you just thread it on. And important thing is to have a little bit of tail left on, so you get that spinny action, give them fish something to see, a little bit of meat on there, and generally that's the ticket. I just kind of get it on there, and then the key is to have a bit of a tail, so when it's going through the water you have a nice tail for the fish to see and grab onto. So the first one we'll try to catch a fish on is just your basic, very common bottom bouncing spinning rig. And we'll see if we can find some active fish today. One thing when I'm bottom bouncing, I'm constantly moving it, finding bottom, lifting it off. I find that's very effective. Getting triggering bites, it seems like. Pull it ahead, find bottom. Pull it ahead, find bottom. And again, not fishing very far behind the boat. Again, a lot of just going back. Oh, there's one. Anchor this up here. See what we got here.
Seems pretty decent. Biker,
Either
anyway.
strappy or almost a tiny bit pikey, but let's see. Either that or he's just ate his Wheaties for breakfast. We'll see. It's a chunky walleye. It's a chunky walleye. There you go. That was just on the traditional, very common, oh, and it popped out. Just your basic spinner rig. It's all tied up here in the net, but yeah, just your basic spinner rig and a worm. It's hard to go wrong with that. Very effective in getting a lot of good eater size walleyes. I can hang on to him. Yeah. Lots of nice eater size walleyes like that. Very effective. Thanks, buddy. For now, I'm going to switch it up, and this is what I said earlier. We tried different things, different techniques. And this is just a paddle tail swim bait with the jig head on it, and I just kind of tie up a piece of line there, put a swivel and a little snap ring on the end so I can switch the baits out. And yeah, it actually works quite well for walleye. And I find actually it weeds out some of the smaller ones. Not always, but if you're looking for a little bit bigger average, yeah, that's fairly effective. You have to be a little bit different when you're bottom bouncing with this because this is obviously weighted and can snag you up. So I do a couple things. Is I just bend this up a little bit, and then that lets it ride a little bit different. And then I'm not in constant contact with the bottom. I'll try and show you that. And I find the bottom, and then I'm usually about a foot off, and I keep it up just a bit, and then this stays right in the strike zone. And we'll see if we can't find a walleye doing that. Alright, so when you have a swim bait on there, it's a little bit different. Might have to speed up here. I'm only doing about 0.9. Drop it down, find bottom with your swim bait. Attachment there. And then you basically stay off the bottom a little bit. You find bottom and then you pull it off. And you want to stay up just a little bit. I'm going to speed this up just a little bit here. Because it's got a weight, a jig head, it's only a 1/4 ounce, so it's not super heavy, but you got to be careful not to snag it up. But it keeps it down in the strike zone. You're covering a bit of water. You're looking for active fish. And sometimes you can catch a big mama. That would be nice. We have to see what's around here today. There's one. I'll anchor up here. That was on the swim bait I put on.
How's it feel?
That doesn't feel too bad. Hard to tell yet. We'll find out here right away. Looks not bad. Got a glimpse of him there. Yeah, he's not bad. Untie her out. He's just about ready. There we go. Yeah, we'll take that. So like I said, on the swim baits, quite often you weed out some of the smaller ones. Hang on there, buddy. I'll let you go right away. There. I'll take that. I'll take that. It's a nice walleye. Nice. All right, we'll let him go. Thanks, bud. Nice.
Good job.
Thanks. All right, so what I got that on quick. I'm gonna pull the bag of it out of there.
Yeah.
I think I have them in there. Yeah, kind of got a tangly mess going on here, but like I said, I just bend that up and that helps keep, because that's a 1/4 ounce jig on there. And what are they? Yeah, a Berkeley power bait. And yeah, I find it weeds out some of the smaller ones. Like I said, not always, but on average, you start catching a little bigger fish if that's what you're after. And it's super effective. I'll try one more method. We'll try, what do you call it, crank next. I'll show you that here right away. All right, the last method I'm going to show is what I like to do is like cranks. Not a big deep diving crank because that would just be disastrous, but a shallow. I think this one dives 2 to 4 feet, something like that. So you still have to be aware. And again, I keep it bent up like this and it helps keep it up a little bit. And I'll try and show it again. You find bottom, but then you bring it up. You're up about 1.5 foot, you find bottom and you bring it back up and it keeps that in the strike zone. And again, it's kind of different techniques for bottom bouncing that's not traditional, but it's really effective. So I'll try and show us catching one on this. And thanks to Trish for manning the cameras and keeping me fishing. I'm kind of hogging all the fish time. And
untangling your line.
Yeah, she untangles me. She's good at that. She's got the patience. I just cut it. Trish will take the time to untangle it. But we will get us going here. Now, so when you're trolling a crank, you got to be really careful. You don't have it too close to the bottom. You want it close to the bottom, but then you try and pull it up, you know, 1 foot or 2, because it's going to naturally, with the crank, obviously it's going to be pulling itself down. But I find it gets it down there, keeps it in that strike zone, and you have an active fish. Those cranks are super effective, especially on a little bit bigger fish. Find that bottom and you bring it up. You got to pay attention to it, especially if you shallow up. You got to be paying attention to your depths. And again, even with this, I'm not very far behind the boat. Stay more control that way, especially this method. You have to be very aware of the bottom and how deep you are, so you're not snagging up that crank. Steady movement. Can't whip it too much because you can tangle it a little bit this way, so it's kind of definitely a finesse thing where you gotta find a happy medium between giving it a bit of action and then inadvertently tangling it on your leader line there. Well, there's one. That's on the crank. I'll anchor us up here before we head into the rhubarb. Doesn't feel very big, but it's a fish. That's another chunky little monkey. There. And that's one on the crank. He's got to be a little more careful unhooking them because there's a whack of hooks in there. Just like that, eh? He's almost out. All right, there. Another nice little eater walleye. Nothing wrong with that. Thanks, buddy. Away he goes. And that one just on the crank. All different kinds of cranks you can use. Your preference, really. I like the stuff with a little bit more colorful, a little bit colorful bottom, I should say, and then kind of a perchy color I find works good on this lake. And again, kind of a shallow diving one. You don't want the deep diver. Like I said, that's just a disaster. Got to be a bit careful. Like I like a bit of movement when I'm bottom bouncing with it, but you got to watch because it is a crank with the trebles and stuff. You can have it jump ahead, loop your line, things like that. So smaller movements I find with when I'm trolling a crank like with this setup. But we just thought we would share a couple different techniques that we've found over the years that work good. And sometimes you catch a bigger average size fish, which is what you're after sometimes. A little bit of fun, catching some big fish. And what else do we got? I got a couple things here. I picked this up at Cabela's. It's really good for, I'm sure lots of guys have seen that, but just your different size bottom bouncers, you know, 2, 2.5s, 1.5s, 1s, and I think these are 3/4 up here. And keeps them organized, and if I want to switch sizes because of depth or lure or whatever, really handy. And then this, I'm sure lots of guys have seen that too, but that's just for your basic spinner rigs and keeps them organized so they're not a disaster in your tackle box. And your favorite colors. Trish likes her pink and white. I stole that one on her this morning. And sometimes, you know, it's flashy, bright colors that work good. And other times it's more subtle colors that work good.
That's my favorite.
Oh, that's her favorite color there. That white and the pink. Trish says that's money. But anyways, I think that's it. We're gonna do a bit more fishing. If we catch a big fish here, we'll show it off to you guys. But this video today was more just showing you kind of our techniques for bottom bouncing. I don't mind bottom bouncing. We do it a fair bit, but other times I like to sharpshoot. You get over reefs or on the edge of reefs and, you know, jigging, different methods of jigging. Maybe I'll show that too at some point. But today was more about bottom bouncing and enjoying a beautiful day. I've got to go pick up my sister and my nephew.
Great nephew.
Great nephew. And he's all excited to go fishing, so we'll see. Maybe I'll throw him in the video later if he's not camera shy. But if he doesn't want to be in the video, then this will be a wrap, I guess.
Yep.
But it was fun, good day. Until the next time, we'll catch you later.